join me. Great to see you here on the show. Band are sounding great. Come and flop down in the comfy chair. It's great to see you. Band are sounding great. Great record, but we'll discuss that in a moment.
Thank you very much.
But welcome, first of all, to this room. Have you seen this?
I've only seen it on the telly, but it's amazing.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great, yeah.
And also, you've got an enormous band with you. Almost more people than I've got in my band. It's not a competition, but it is amazing.
Well, it is a competition when you get to our age, Jules.
How many people have you got? I bet you don't even know.
I've got 9 core, is that right? 10 including Pep. And the string section they played on my records.
And the new record, Council Skies, what a great record.
Thank you.
Where does the title come from?
I was writing the title track and I was falling down writing it at the place where it needed a hook. And I just happened to be at home noodling away, and there was a book from an artist friend of mine called Pete McKee from Sheffield, who is an illustrator, painter, and he paints these imaginary characters from council estates, and the book was called Council Skies. And Council Skies is a particular colour of blue that he mixes to do these backdrops and for his skies and his pictures. And I just called him and asked him could I use the title, and he said yeah, and that was it. And then it set off a whole kind of chain of events, you know, where it's like, oh, Council Skies sounds amazing. It's an amazing title for a...
It is a great title.
Yeah.
In the recording day, I wonder how does the recording days now compare to a day recording in the 90s? It's a very different way of recording. Maybe you can't have no memories of the 90s, I don't know.
Well, I don't have a great deal of memory of it, but the recording then, I mean, it was great because you had nothing else to compare it to, so it was amazing. But like the difference now is there's no compromise now. So I put the foundations in on my own with a couple of core guys. Paul Stacey, who's here tonight, and my studio guy Callum, and then we get the band in for for whatever parts are needed. But in the 90s, you know, they're brilliant, and bands change the world, right? But you know, they can be very rigid. Like the bass player has to play the bass, and the keyboard player has to do this, and so the difference now is that anything goes in the studio, really.
Out of interest, so for instance, when you record this record, what time of day do you sort of start and finish?
Well, I always start at midday and finish at 6. I don't work past 6. I mean, if you can't say it in 6 hours, there's no point.
I do the same, and then you need your dinner.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I can't work after dinner.
No, but did for instance, when you in the 90s, did you have the same working hours?
No, no. We would start. We would probably start around the same time, but we would. But funnily enough, though, we would work through the night, but everything that we did after dinner, we'd always have to redo.
Yeah.
Because there'd be drinking involved and the rest of it.
Yeah.
But now, 12 till 6, I can't be bothered working after 6 o'clock. There's football to watch and stuff.
What about your average day? Because that was your working day. But how about your average day now to your average day in the 90s? Is that dramatically different?
Yeah. not getting chased around the streets by the paparazzi, for one. The 90s was, you know, you've got so much power when you're young that you can take on anything. When I think about the things now that we used to do and some of the states we used to do gigs in, great, amazing, iconic gigs, I'd have a nervous breakdown thinking about it. You know, be up for, like, you know, we wouldn't be going to bed till the sun came up, and then, you know...
Do it again.
Yeah, well, it just felt like nothing, but that's the power of youth, you know.
Yeah. Well, next year it will be 30 years since Oasis released their first record. Will you be doing anything to celebrate or ignoring it?
I don't know. I think hopefully I'll still be on the road with this, but I think I'm doing so. I mean, I'm not sure I'll be doing anything live, but we'll be doing something to acknowledge it.
And you did Going Nowhere, Oasis song earlier.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't think I've ever played that before.
No.
Some guy somewhere now will be on the internet going, oh, he played it in Cincinnati in 1998.
Yeah.
But I've
breakfast telly.
Well, I did that. I'm going to play a song before that. I'd said that I'd never done live before, and then I got home and I thought to myself, I'll just check if I've played that live before, and there's about 104 versions of it on the internet. No, Going Nowhere I've never played, and when we had the strings and that, we was like, well, maybe we'll try it. And we kicked it around in rehearsals, and it kind of sounded all right. I mean, I've got a lot of B-sides and stuff from the years, which I've never really looked at, you know, because the albums were so iconic. And we'll be visiting some of it on the road this year, so we're looking forward to that.
And you're touring a lot. Do you take anything special on tour with you? Do you like...
Well, I take my own pillow.
Nice.
But if I'm in, like, a hotel, and I see a better pillow, I'll just swap it. And,
Yeah.
and stick, yeah.
That's why I always get
yeah,
the wrong
no,
pillow.
yeah.
Would you like Noel's room? It's really
Yeah,
top room. And
well,
I'll give you a bloody pillow.
I am a confirmed pillow thief. You know,
Yeah.
I will do it.
You're about to go to Europe and
We
big
are.
tour. Are you looking forward to
Yeah,
that?
not really.
Why?
Because your ball ache to get around now after Brexit, innit? It's just a pain. Even like setting up the tour now is just... I feel sorry for fans because we used to do a lot of gigs in Europe and now it's like one gig in each country, and particularly for musicians it's become very, very difficult to do that thing. And now around Europe it's like, you know, you got to deal with separate visas and all that. But I feel for kids starting out now. I really do feel... you know, if I think what it was like in the 90s, it was just free and easy, and, you know, the rules that had been set the previous 50 years of rock and roll were still in place, and now they seem to be shifting every 3 or 4 months.
When we spoke in 2015, you told me that rock and roll wasn't in the best place. What's your view now in 2023?
There is great music out there, but it's not. It doesn't come to you anymore. You've got to go find it, you know. And the best bands I've seen recently, you wouldn't really cast them as rock and roll or guitar music.
Speaking of rock and roll group, one of the great rock and rolls of all time, of course, the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And I believe you bumped into Keith in a hotel.
Well, it was New Year's Eve about 5 years ago, and we were in the Caribbean, and Keith Richards and his family happened to be there.
Lovely.
And I know some of Keith's kids are huge Oasis fans, and I seen one of them by the pool, and he was like, "Oh, my dad's here," and I was like, "Get the fuck out." And so he said, "Oh, we're going up to the bar tonight. You want to come and meet me, Dad?" I've never met Keith Richards, and I go up to the bar, and there he is, you know, dressed as a pirate, you know. And
Absolutely,
yeah,
Keith being Keith.
yeah, and he's drinking this drink, vodka and ting.
What's ting?
Ting is like lilt, but out there they call it ting.
Nice.
Right? And
Great man.
his son, Marlon, said, "Oh, Dad, this is only turn around." He went, "You're still around, are you?"
That's very good. That does sound like him.
And he said, and I was like, "Why?" And he said, "Yeah, that band you were in, you're interesting for a while." And I was like, "Well, thanks." You know.
What did you say to that?
Well, I could say the same to you, really, couldn't I? I mean, to be honest. And he said to me, I've always wanted to ask you, who do you think's the bigger cunt, your singer or mine?" And I was like, "Well, seems like your singer wrote some of the best lyrics of all time. I'm going to say mine." You know. And he said, "I thought so."
What a lovely...
I know. But he was brilliant. That guy restores your faith in everything.
Yes.
He's just... Well, he's the GOAT, you know.
Yeah, he's the proper thing. You're going to do a cover for us tonight.
Yeah.
What one are you going to do?
Well, I'm going to do a cover of the first song I ever learned to play. When I first picked up the guitar, I couldn't play it, but I used to play along on the top string to Joy Division bass lines. Oh. And I'm going to do a cover of Love Will Tear Us Apart. And when I told my people I was going to do it, they were like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "I'm going to give it a fucking good go, yeah."
Yeah.
And we got the strings on it, and well, you can decide whether it's any good or not, but I happen to think it's absolutely, totally adequate.
I think it sounds great. Well, I'm with you.
Yeah, perfectly adequate.
I'm with you. Well, it's really great having you here. I'd like to invite you to go back now to your
Thank you
wonderful
very
band.
much. Great to be here.
Thank you very much, Noel Gallagher, for joining us.